Elder Shui took the head and left. At the peak of the mountain, Xianxia looked up at the endless starry sky and spoke softly. Axiu, little Qi, both of you better stay safe. Xianxia turned around and left. Cultivate. Xianxia entered his cultivation room and sat down cross-legged before closing his eyes slowly. A moment later, a wave of monstrous slaughter intent appeared within the room. He was releasing his slaughter intent. Even though he'd comprehended it, he wasn't able to control it at all. If he couldn't control it completely, it represented that his sword intent would be impossible to unleash. Under such circumstances, his strength would undoubtedly be greatly reduced. Only when his slaughter intent, slaughter domain, sword intent, and sword domain could be used simultaneously, his strength would be at its most terrifying. Dual intents and dual domains. Now, he planned to take control of his slaughter intent instead of letting it control him. Moreover, he wanted to master the slaughter domain so that he could merge it with his sword domain. They had to be independently improved, but when it was necessary, they had to merge as one. Boundless slaughter intent filled the room. Under his control, his slaughter intent didn't leave the room and converged within the room. Besides that, his slaughter domain covered the area within the room. Slaughter intent and slaughter domain. At this moment, even a Destiny Realm expert couldn't survive within this room. Even Xianxia himself found his slaughter intent and slaughter domain difficult to resist, even with his pure sword heart. If he didn't have a pure sword heart and the enlightened sword heart, he wouldn't even dare to release his slaughter intent, because it practically had its own consciousness. If he was too weak, it would definitely take control of him instead. The entire room was filled with endless slaughter intent. Especially with the slaughter domain's enhancement, the slaughter intent was terrifyingly solid. It was even more terrifying than his current sword intent. His sword intent was at the Destiny Realm now, but his slaughter intent was almost at the peak of the Destiny Realm. The strength of his slaughter intent was a direct reflection of the hatred he'd felt in the origin world. In the cultivation room, Xianxia held Executor tight. At this moment, Executor had turned blood red under the influence of his slaughter intent. And Nanjing was standing at the entrance to the room. A trace of worry flashed through her eyes as she gazed at Xianxia. She'd experienced Xianxia's slaughter intent for herself. Once Xianxia fails to control it, the entire world in the primordial pagoda may be in danger. Suddenly, a mysterious wave of energy appeared here. The sword domain, and Nanjing heaved a sigh of relief when she sensed it. Fortunately, Xianxia was able to suppress it, but it didn't take long for her expression to change once more. It was because the sword domain had vanished without a trace while the slaughter intent here rose rapidly. It wasn't that his sword domain was weaker than his slaughter domain, it was because Xianxia would side with the slaughter domain while under the influence of his slaughter intent. Under such circumstances, the sword domain would naturally be at a disadvantage. If his mind was clear and he sided with the sword domain, then his slaughter domain would naturally be suppressed. Now, he had to balance them and make them exist simultaneously. Meanwhile, on the Ascension platform, Snowy flew up the platform, and the fragments of Sword Scroll's body were before her. At this moment, Snowy was ceaselessly pouring spirit energy into the fragments. Actually, her method of repairing it was very simple, and it was to fill it with energy. Her spirit energy was quite special, especially now that she was a sprite progenitor. The fragments started to tremble upon receiving Snowy's spirit energy, and a short while later, they started to slowly come together on their own. A smile appeared on Sword Scroll's face when she witnessed this. She could finally return to her original form. Day after day passed. A long time later, the cultivation room shook violently, and then slaughter intent surged throughout it. And Nanjing's expression grew increasingly solemn. It would be a lie if she said that she wasn't worried. Just like that, 3 days passed. Xianxia suddenly emerged from the room on the 4th day, and Nanjing was stunned when she saw Xianxia. At this moment, one of Xianxia's eyes was red while the other was clear. Besides that, his hair was half red and half black. And Nanjing frowned slightly. What happened? Xianxia closed his eyes slowly. It's the best I can do. Partially mad. It was the state he was currently in. He couldn't fully suppress his slaughter intent and slaughter domain. If he wanted to make his slaughter intent and slaughter domain coexist with his sword intent and sword domain, then he had to be affected by his slaughter intent. It was unavoidable, because it was the essence of slaughter intent. The essence of slaughter intent was murder. Presently, he only had partial clarity of the mind. So, he was partially mad and partially clear-minded. It was the best he could accomplish. It could be said that he was in the most dangerous state he could be in, because the slightest mistake which made his thoughts side with his desire to kill would make him kill. However, the benefits were tremendous as well. Now, he could use his sword domain and slaughter domain simultaneously. With the help of dual domains and dual intents, ordinary Destiny Realm experts were absolutely no match for him. And Nanjing asked, "Are you really all right?" Yang Yi opened his eyes and nodded slightly. "I'm fine." Yang Yi followed and Nanjing to the ascension platform. Snowy was still restoring Sword Scroll's main body. She cracked a smile upon noticing Yang Ye's arrival, and then she abandoned the fragments, hugged Yang Ye's neck, and started rubbing her head against him. Sword Scroll felt quite helpless. Yang Yi rubbed Snowy's head gently. "Is it difficult to restore her original body?" Snowy hurriedly shook her head. It wasn't difficult for her at all. Yang Yi grinned. "Thanks." After playing with Snowy for a while, Yang Yi left the primordial pagoda. At the peak of the mountain, Yang Yi gazed up into space. He had many things to protect, and he had many things that he cared about. He still hadn't heard anything about Xianxia and Qi Bidian. How are they now? Suddenly, Elder Shui appeared behind Yang Yi, and she was shocked upon seeing him. "Sect Master." Yang Yi restrained his thoughts and shook his head. "I'm fine." "What is it?" Elder Shui spoke solemnly. "The desolate race has started to take action." Yang Yi frowned slightly. "They've attacked the Eternal Kingdom?" Elder Shui shook her head. "They haven't. However, their army is at Eternal Border, and they've blocked the exits of Eternal Kingdom." Yang Yi nodded. "How did Eternal Kingdom react to that?" Elder Shui replied, "The Eternal Lord gave the order for all powers and independent cultivators to converge in the central region." She hesitated for a moment and added, "Our sect received the order too." Yang Yi revealed a wisp of ridicule. "They want us to fight the desolate race?" Elder Shui remained silent. Yang Yi looked up at the sky. "Elder Shui, what do you think?" She shook her head. "Our sect will support you no matter what. It doesn't matter what your decision is. We'll follow you even to the death." Follow Yang Yi. Yang Yi had led them through their most difficult moment until now. It could be said that no one's prestige in the sect could compete with him. Yang Yi nodded. "Tell the disciples to cultivate well and ignore everything that's happening in the outside world. Don't leave the sect during this time as well." Elder Shui nodded. "I hope you'll be careful." She turned around and left. Yang Yi left the ancient sword sect again. This time he went to dark space. As soon as he arrived here, he sensed countless darkspawn, but it only took a while for them to vanish completely. A beam of light appeared not too far away from Yang Yi, and the Dark Lord was within it. The powerful Dark Lord. Even now, Yang Yi could still sense how formidable the Dark Lord was. Yang Yi cupped his fist to the Dark Lord. "Senior, I have a request." The Dark Lord fell silent for a moment and said, "Go on." Yang Yi spoke solemnly. "May I know how the origin world is right now?" The Dark Lord replied, "It has been completely destroyed. It doesn't exist anymore." Yang Yi hurriedly asked, "What about the two of them?" The Dark Lord fell silent for a long time and said, "Their fate is unknown." Yang Yi frowned. "Unknown?" The Dark Lord said, "All of us had to stay away when that existence appeared. I hadn't gone near the origin world that day, and I was just watching from afar. However, because I was so far away, even I don't know what happened there in the end. Now, the entire origin world is in ruins and without any signs of life." Yang Yi fell silent. Slaughter intent gradually thickened slightly around him. Meanwhile, the Dark Lord said, "You should be careful from now on." Yang Yi gazed at the Dark Lord. The Dark Lord explained, The origin world is linked to that place. Now that the origin world has been destroyed, the people there definitely hate you, because it's equivalent to destroying their final home. Now that those two are fighting that woman in black and their whereabouts are unknown, it's very likely that the people from that place will act against you. Xianxia spoke solemnly. What is that place? The Dark Lord explained. A place that can conceal auras and help them hide from destiny. Every expert who attains a certain level of strength would go there. Xianxia spoke solemnly. Both you and the Desolate Emperor don't seem to be from that place. The Dark Lord replied. We can suppress ourselves. We use a world to suppress our cultivation, but many of them don't have such things. Xianxia nodded. I see. Thank you for answering my questions. Xianxia turned around and was about to leave. Suddenly, the Dark Lord said, Be careful of the sprite progenitor. Xianxia frowned. Be careful of Snowy? The Dark Lord explained. She is the only one who can use the energy of the myriad sprites to conceal that world from destiny. So, if they want to survive, they will definitely come looking for the sprite progenitor. A ferocious grin appeared on the corners of Xianxia's mouth. Senior, how do I get to that place? The Dark Lord fell silent for a short while and said, You want to go to them? Xianxia's expression returned to normal. No, I'm just asking. The Dark Lord replied. If I'm not wrong, they may come to you very soon. Xianxia nodded. No matter what, thank you for answering my questions. Xianxia turned around and left. Eternal Border. Xianxia went to Eternal Border. He still had some acquaintances here. The Nanli clan. Xianxia went to the Nanli clan, and Nanli Meng appeared before him. She scanned him and smiled. Long time no see. Xianxia nodded. It's been a long time. She asked, Are you coming inside? Xianxia shook his head. I have many other things to do, so I'll just speak to you out here. She nodded slightly. The Desolate Race is about to attack. Xianxia said. I know. What do you plan to do? Nanli Meng smiled. What can I do? Xianxia said. Don't get mixed up in the battle between them. Nanli Meng smiled. Why? Xianxia glanced at her and said. If your Nanli clan joins the battle at its current strength, it'll be nothing more than cannon fodder. Just hide. Take the Nanli clan with you and hide. If it's possible, help me take care of Sword Sky City too. The Sword Sky City he mentioned was naturally the same Sword Sky City which had helped him in the past. In the battle between Eternal Kingdom and the Desolate Race, these small powers were very likely to be obliterated from the slightest mistake, even the Nanli clan. Nanli Meng nodded. I see. Take care. Xianxia said. You take care too. He turned around and vanished into the sky. Nanli Meng fell silent for a long time, and then she returned to the Nanli clan. She stood at the center of the hall for a long time before she spoke abruptly. Give the order for everyone to come see me immediately. We're leaving Eternal Border. Patriarch? Meanwhile, a voice came from the shadows. You've attained the legendary Destiny Realm. Yet, Nanli Meng glanced coldly at the source of the voice. I asked you to go, so go. Understand? Yes. The voice didn't dare to hesitate and hurried off. It didn't take long for the entire Nanli clan to vanish. Xianxia didn't return to Eternal Kingdom immediately. He went to the Desolate Race. At this moment, the Desolate Race was camped outside Eternal Kingdom, and he openly showed himself before their army. A short while later, Huang Ying appeared before him. Huang Ying sized up Xianxia and smiled. Long time no see. Xianxia nodded slightly. Are you going to start? Huang Ying smiled. Haven't you already seen it? Xianxia nodded. Indeed, the Eternal Kingdom and all the other powers had suffered some losses in Eternal Kingdom. So it was the Desolate Race's best opportunity. The more chaotic the universe got, the more beneficial it would be for the Desolate Race. Xianxia looked behind Huang Ying. It was a void, and the Desolate Race's army was within the space there. As for what kind of experts were there, Xianxia didn't know. However, as far as he was concerned, just the Desolate Emperor alone was sufficient to give the Eternal Kingdom a huge headache. Xianxia didn't say anything else and just left. Huang Ying didn't say anything and just watched Xianxia leave. A long time later, he turned around and entered that void. Yang Yi returned to Eternal Kingdom, the ancient sword sect. Yang Yi entered the primordial pagoda because Sword Scroll's main body had been repaired. On the ascension platform, Sword Scroll was merging with her main body. Her main body was a vessel, and she was its spirit. So, she would recover to her original level once they merged into one. A super divine treasure. Even though he had Executor already, Executor wasn't complete. Moreover, in a situation like this, he would always welcome an extra super divine treasure. Snowy didn't leave and was helping her merge with her main body. Sword Scroll had a much better chance at success with Snowy there to help her. Yang Yi went over to Area. Area was still absorbing the inner core fragment, and her aura was at a level that even made his heart palpitate slightly. He knew that when she woke up, she may not be the same Area he knew. Suddenly, Yang Yi left the primordial pagoda. At one of the ancient sword sect's former practice grounds, Yang Yi appeared out of thin air in the sky, and Elder Shui was in front of him. Elder Shui bowed slightly to Yang Yi. The Sprite Palace is here again. Yang Yi shook his head. Tell them to leave, Elder Shui said. She said she isn't here to ask for the Sprite progenitor. As soon as Elder Shui finished speaking, a figure suddenly appeared nearby. It didn't take long for a woman in blazing flames to appear before them. A Destiny Realm expert. Moreover, she was no ordinary Destiny Realm expert. The woman glanced at Yang Yi and spoke indifferently. It's really difficult to meet you, Sect Master Yi. Yang Yi said, I don't want to waste my time. She grunted coldly. Yang Yi, do you know that the Sprite progenitor is in extreme danger? According to my knowledge, that place has decided to act against her. Yang Yi nodded. I know. She spoke coldly. You do? Then why do you still keep her with you? Yang Yi smiled. And let her go to the Sprite Palace? Can you keep her safe? The woman fell silent. Yang Yi shook his head and smiled. Tell me why you're really here. Don't waste your breath trying to argue with me. It's meaningless. The woman spoke solemnly. Yang Yi, we must join forces now. It's the only way we'll have a chance at keeping her safe. Yang Yi walked over to her and smiled. You know who we have to face, yet you've still come here. Tell me, what do you want her to do? Don't tell me you're kind-hearted and a loyal follower of the Sprite progenitor. There is good and bad among all living beings, and sprites are no exception. If the Sprite Palace was truly loyal to the Sprite progenitor, they would have come when Snowy summoned the help of the universe. However, they hadn't. The Sprite Palace was an organization. If he gave Snowy to them, Snowy was very likely to fall under their control and become a puppet. It was why he didn't like Sprite Palace. They didn't even show themselves before Snowy truly became the Sprite progenitor. But as soon as she did, they came for her. So, how could their intentions be pure? The woman gazed at Yang Yi for a long time and smiled. If she comes with us, she'll gain the previous Sprite progenitor's inheritance. At that time, she'll regain her full strength. As for my Sprite Palace, we have the defensive formations the previous Sprite progenitor left behind. If you join us too, it shouldn't be that difficult to keep her safe. Of course, it all depends on you. Yang Yi shook his head. I refuse. You can leave now. The woman took a deep and long glance at Yang Yi, and then she transformed into a ray of fire that vanished into the sky. Elder Shui spoke solemnly from Yang Ye's side. They won't give up. Yang Yi glanced at the sky. I know. Elder Shui hesitated for a moment and seemed to intend to say something. However, she didn't say anything in the end and just left. Meanwhile, a Nanjing appeared by Yang Ye's side. She glanced at the flames in the distance and said, What role do you wish to play in this war? The war between the desolate race and Eternal Kingdom was impossible to avoid. Yang Yi shook his head and gazed at her. I just want all of you to be safe and well. He didn't want to get mixed up in the conflict between the desolate race and Eternal Kingdom. He just wanted Snowy, and Nanjing, the ancient sword sect's disciples, and everyone else to be safe and well. And Nanjing nodded slightly. We'll all be fine. Boom. Suddenly, a rumbling explosion resounded from afar. At this moment, the entire ancient sword sect shook like there was an earthquake. and even the entire Eternal Kingdom was shaking. And Nanjing spoke softly. The barrier between Eternal Border and Eternal Kingdom has been destroyed. Yang Yi nodded. It has. The entire Eternal Kingdom was shocked. The desolate race was here again. The Eternal Kingdom had never forgotten the desolate race. All those years ago, it was this race that had almost annihilated the entire Eternal Kingdom. Countless years later, they were back again. Were they afraid? No. Eternal Kingdom didn't fear them. All Eternal Kingdom wanted was revenge. That war had been a humiliation for them, and they planned to cleanse themselves of it. Ancient Sword Sect. At the mountain peak, Yang Yi left with a Nanjing. It was time for him to watch from the sidelines as they fought. Of course, he would stab them in the back if necessary. He would never forget how the Soul Sect and the other powers of Eternal Kingdom had treated him. The War Dimension. A woman soundlessly appeared on the city walls. It was Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan gazed at the sky with indifference on her face. A long time later, Lu Yuan suddenly said, "War Dimension, hear me. Come with me to battle. We shall fight the desolate race to the death." To the death. Countless voices resounded throughout the War Dimension. A short while later, rays of light shot up from deep within the city and rushed after her. It wasn't just in War City. Countless experts answered the call of the Eternal Lord and rushed toward the central region. Of course, the ancient Sword Sect was an exception. Eternal Border. Above the Eternal River, the desolate Emperor smiled as he gazed at Eternal Kingdom. A short while later, his smile widened to a brilliant smile. This time, you don't have a sprite progenitor to help you. He looked into the distance and said, "You start first." As soon as he gave the order, a huge axe tore through the sky. The huge axe tore through the sky and entered Eternal Kingdom. A middle-aged man soundlessly appeared behind the shattered barrier of Eternal Kingdom. A moment later, the middle-aged man forcefully stopped the huge axe. The middle-aged man was the Eternal Lord, the supreme expert of the Eternal Kingdom for the last 1,000 years. The Eternal Lord flicked the axe back to where it had come from. The desolate Emperor didn't do anything. A man with shoulder-length hair appeared near him, and the man stretched out his hand. A huge hand tore through space and emerged before him. Along with the appearance of that huge hand, the huge axe suddenly stopped in midair. A moment later, the huge axe appeared in the huge hand's grasp, and then the huge hand swung the axe at the Eternal Lord. Hiss! The world cracked open before it. The axe descended, and an extremely long spatial rift appeared in the sky. The might of this swing of the axe was simply capable of obliterating everything before it. In the Eternal Kingdom, the Eternal Lord remained indifferent. A golden brush appeared in his grasp when the axe arrived just 300 m away from him, and then a beam of golden light surged out from it. Boom! The huge axe shook violently in midair and was blasted away. At the same time, the huge hand behind the axe trembled and dispersed. The man by the desolate Emperor's side had a ferocious expression on his face. He was about to attack, but the desolate Emperor stopped him. The man gazed at the desolate Emperor, and the latter said, "Huang Xian, you've underestimated the Eternal Lord." The man called Huang Xian grunted coldly and remained silent. The Eternal Lord gazed at the desolate Emperor. "Desolate Emperor, the origin world has been destroyed, and that place is on the verge of destruction. Even if you can take Eternal Kingdom, what difference would that make?" The desolate Emperor smiled. "Of course it would make a difference. All of you schemed against me and almost caused the destruction of my desolate race. How could I not avenge that?" His smile grew even more brilliant. "Actually, I wanted to wait. Unfortunately, I didn't expect the heavens to assist me. The origin world was destroyed, those old geezers were either killed or fled. Now, even if they want to do something about this, they can't. This time, Eternal Kingdom will have no help, nor will it have the sprite progenitor. Of course, even if you have help, it won't make a difference. I'll just annihilate them too." "Ha." The Eternal Lord glanced coldly at him. "Looks like you're very confident." The desolate Emperor smiled. "Let's cut the crap. I know you were holding back in the origin world. You don't have to hold back anymore now. The desolate emperor vanished on the spot. The eternal lord vanished right after him. A shocking battle erupted far away in the sky. Once they vanished, 7 figures appeared in the air above Eternal Kingdom. 7 peak destiny realm experts. Lu Yuan from the War Dimension was among them. There was also the Soul Sect's master, the Lu clan's ancestor Lu Xuanji, the Yi clan's ancestor Yi Zhitian, the Lang clan's ancestor Lang Chenlin, and the mysterious master of Heaven's avatar. As for the last figure, it was the demon king of the demon race in the War Dimension. Besides that, the elite experts of the various clans and powers were gathered behind the shattered barrier, and it included the elites of the War Dimension. All the experts of Eternal Kingdom were here. Eternal Kingdom was prepared for the desolate race's invasion. Meanwhile, once the desolate emperor left, the desolate race seemed to have no more experts. Of course, Eternal Kingdom would never think that. The middle-aged man called Huang Xian didn't attack. He was in no rush. The desolate race had waited for so many years, so they had a great deal of patience. Meanwhile, a group of black-clothed figures suddenly appeared behind Huang Xian. 18 black-clothed figures. Desolate Death Guard. One of the desolate race's true elites. Most of these desolate Death Guard had survived the previous war. Besides that, there were some that the desolate race had fostered over the years. Even though most of them were only at the Lord Realm, their combat strength was absolutely solid. If they joined forces, even killing a Destiny Realm expert wouldn't be difficult at all. At this moment, Lu Yuan and the others recognized the desolate Death Guard. They revealed solemn expressions on their faces. Eternal Kingdom naturally wouldn't forget the desolate Death Guard. All those years ago, the desolate Death Guard had almost killed its way into Eternal Kingdom, and it was during that time that the over 100 sword cultivators of the ancient sword sect had died in battle against them. If it hadn't been for those formidable sword cultivators, the desolate Death Guard would have killed its way into the central region. The desolate Death Guard were like a sharp sword that could pierce anything. Suddenly, Lu Yuan closed her eyes slowly, and then she roared, "Where are the war guards of my war dimension?" Swish! Swish! 36 figures appeared below her. They wore violet armor, held spears or sabers, and were made up of men and women. All of them were at the Lord Realm. Besides that, they were wearing and holding divine treasures. They were fully equipped with divine treasures. All 36 of them were the extraordinary experts that Eternal Kingdom had specially fostered, so Eternal Kingdom would definitely not hold back. These war guards ate the best and used the best. Of course, no ordinary expert could become one of them. All of them were the most monstrous geniuses of Eternal Kingdom. Based on their auras, they weren't any weaker than the desolate Death Guards. All those years ago, Eternal Kingdom had been conceded, and it hadn't fostered its own forces. Coupled with the fact that the desolate race had taken them by surprise, Eternal Kingdom had crumbled before the desolate race. Now, Eternal Kingdom had been waiting for this battle for a long time. Huang Xian had a cold smile on his face as he waved his right hand. A moment later, the desolate Death Guards behind him charged at the War Guards. 18 against 36. The desolate Death Guards were at a disadvantage when it came to their numbers. However, their imposing aura didn't lose to the War Guards of Eternal Kingdom at all. Fight! Once their battle began, the entire Eternal River evaporated while numerous explosions resounded through the area. At this moment, countless experts from Eternal Border felt horrible, because they were very well aware that regardless of which side won this war, Eternal Border would be gone once this war was over. All those years ago, Eternal Border was protected by the Sprite Progenitor, and she'd helped repair the area. That was how it was able to survive the war. Yet now, no matter what, Eternal Border was about to vanish forever. The desolate Death Guard stopped the 36 War Guards without being pushed to a disadvantage at all. Moreover, they even showed signs of suppressing the War Guards. Lu Yuan's face was extremely gloomy. Now, she knew the flaws that these War Guards of hers had. They weren't mad and ruthless enough. Even if the desolate Death Guard's strength were ignored, their ruthlessness was very terrifying. It was ruthlessness she'd seen in one person, the ancient sword sect's current sect master. Lu Yuan restrained her thoughts and gazed at Huang Xian. What? Is that all your desolate race has? Huang Xian shrugged. We really don't have as many forces as you do, but so what? No matter how many people you have, they are just a bunch of weaklings. Ha ha! Lu Yuan's eyes narrowed slightly. Attack! Once she gave the order, the Destiny Realm experts behind her were about to attack. However, a powerful wave of pressure slammed down from the distant battlefield. It enveloped the Soul Sect's master, the master of Heaven's avatar, and a peak Destiny Realm expert who was an independent cultivator. They were being forced to fight. Meanwhile, roaring laughter resounded from high above. Just one peak Destiny Realm expert isn't enough at all. Come. 2 more. No, 3 more. Ha ha. It was the Desolate Emperor. The Soul Sect's master and the others' expressions turned extremely unsightly. The Desolate Emperor was still able to deal with them as well. What did that represent? It represented that his strength was above the Eternal Lord. The Soul Sect's master and the others gazed at Lu Yuan. She looked up at the distant battlefield, fell silent for a long time, and then nodded slightly. All those years ago, the Eternal Lord had overestimated themselves and died at the hands of the Desolate Emperor. They could naturally not allow history to repeat itself. Once Lu Yuan nodded, the 3 of them shot up into the air and entered the distant battlefield. 1 against 4. Now, the Desolate Emperor, who was renowned throughout the universe, was finally revealing his true strength. But Lu Yuan still had 4 extraordinary Destiny Realm experts on her side. But the Desolate race only had Huang Xian. Based on the overall situation, Eternal Kingdom still had the upper hand. Lu Yuan walked slowly in Huang Xian's direction, and a few auras shot over from behind her and locked onto Huang Xian. However, Lu Yuan and the others still remained vigilant because they were very well aware that it was impossible for this to be the limits of the Desolate race's strength. Of course, they had trump cards too. Meanwhile, Xianxia was seated on the peak of a mountain in the ancient sword sect. There was a sword floating by his side. It was Executor. Suddenly, an ethereal palace appeared above him. The Sword Hall, a hall made of countless swords. At this moment, countless sword howls resounded through the ancient sword sect, and then the sword hall above Xianxia shook violently while countless rays of light floated into the air. The world was covered in swords. A moment later, a wave of powerful intent appeared in the sky, and then half of the swords turned blood red. Meanwhile, Elder Shui appeared behind Xianxia. She took a deep and long glance at the surroundings. The Sword Hall, this super-divine treasure which once belonged to the ancient sword sect, had appeared once more. Xianxia suddenly asked, "What is it?" Elder Shui bowed slightly. "Eternal Kingdom and the Desolate race have started fighting." Xianxia stood up slowly and said, "I'm going to watch the show." As soon as he finished speaking, Xianxia vanished on the spot. A ray of blood-red light flashed through the distant sky. "Watch the show." Elder Shui shook her head on the mountaintop. She knew he would probably get into trouble in the end. Eternal Border. At this moment, the battle was still going on. Lu Yuan walked slowly toward Huang Xian. "Huang Xian, I heard you're the strongest in the Desolate race besides the Desolate Emperor. I'd like to see for myself." Huang Xian roared with laughter. "I too would like to see how strong the strongest in the war dimension is." As soon as he finished speaking, his figure turned ethereal. A moment later, a wave of powerful energy tore through space toward Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan's eyes narrowed slightly, and she pressed her palms together. Bang! At the instant they were pressed together, a wave of destructive force exploded forth. Bam! In an instant, Huang Xian was blasted away, but just a moment later, he charged at her with his axe in hand. Boom! The world shook as countless spatial rifts cracked open, and Lu Yuan was pushed backward repeatedly. Ha ha! Huang Xian roared madly with laughter. "Come on! Let's continue!" He charged at Lu Yuan again. While Lu Yuan and Huang Xian fought, the Demon King of War Dimension and the other ancestors of the various clans had charged at the Desolate race's forces. It could be said that if the Desolate race had no Destiny Realm experts, then it would be annihilated. These ancestors of the various clans were definitely not existences that the desolate Death Guards could resist. After all, their realms of cultivation were different. The desolate race naturally didn't have just two Destiny Realm experts. The Demon King's group stopped abruptly because an old man with a bamboo cane had appeared before them. As soon as they saw him, the Lu clan's ancestor, Lu Xuanji's face instantly turned unsightly. Huang Boer, you're actually still alive. Huang Boer, the previous patriarch of the desolate race. The desolate emperor had taken over after him. He was an expert from many, many years ago. Only a few people in the world recognized him now. However, he wasn't an unfamiliar face to some of the old experts of Eternal Kingdom. Because Huang Boer had once entered Eternal Kingdom. However, along with the desolate emperor's meteoric rise, Huang Boer had gradually vanished from the limelight. It wasn't that he wasn't strong. It was just that the desolate emperor had been too dazzling. Huang Boer glanced at Lu Xuanji with ridicule on his lips. You're from the Lu clan? Huh? You're much inferior when compared to your grandfather. Lu Xuanji spoke coldly. We'll only know that for sure after we fight. Huang Boer glanced at the others by Lu Xuanji's side and said, Come at me together. As soon as he finished speaking, he raised his right hand slightly and raised it in their direction. Bang! The space around Lu Xuanji's group warped. At the same time, Huang Boer charged into the warped space with his cane in hand. Meanwhile, a ray of blood-red sword energy appeared in the sky. It was Xianxia. The Soul Sect's master and the others' expressions instantly turned unsightly when they noticed Xianxia's arrival. Xianxia. They had naturally not forgotten this monstrous fellow. If Xianxia helped the desolate race now, they would be in big trouble. This fellow's strength was something ordinary Destiny Realm experts were no match for. That wasn't even the main point. The main point was that he had the backing of two terrifying existences. Not to mention that they may not even be able to kill him, but even if they could, they wouldn't really dare to. What if those two women survived? Fortunately, Xianxia didn't attack, and this allowed them to heave sighs of relief. Xianxia naturally didn't do anything. He had no intention of interfering in the battle between the Eternal Kingdom and Desolate Race. Even though he wanted to annihilate the powers of Eternal Kingdom, acting now would definitely make Eternal Kingdom use their trump cards on him. Moreover, the Desolate Emperor had great aspirations, and Xianxia was quite vigilant toward him. Xianxia glanced at the Desolate Death Guard and War Guard. At this moment, their battle was at its peak. The Desolate Death Guard still had 16 of their 18 members, but the War Guard had less than 30 of their members left. Xianxia shook his head slightly. Their cultivations may be on par, but the War Guard lacked ferocity and ruthlessness. As for the Desolate Death Guard, they were truly unafraid of death, and they had a form of conviction. Their conviction was to fight for the desolate race. They were ready to die for it. Xianxia could sense that these Death Guards actually had no intention to survive. So, the War Guard were naturally suppressed. At most times, it wasn't strength that determined the outcome of a battle. It was fearlessness of death. Xianxia looked up at the distant battlefield in the sky. The Desolate Emperor was fighting 4 experts on his own. He was suppressing 4 of them on his own. Just like Xianxia had done that day. Needless to say, the Desolate Emperor and Xianxia were the most outstanding geniuses of this era. Suddenly, Xianxia looked down. 6 black-clothed figures with sickles in their grasps suddenly appeared there. They didn't join the battle and charged at Eternal Kingdom instead. Experts of the Desolate Race. These 6 experts were even more terrifying than the Desolate Death Guards and War Guards. Their auras were terrifying. All of them were Peak Lord Realm experts. However, their auras were even more terrifying than some Destiny Realm experts. Could be said that even he wasn't confident in being able to best their joint forces. Were they the Desolate Race's trump card? Suddenly, a group of people appeared before them. They were the elites of the various clans, including the experts of the Soul Sect, the generals of the Demon Race, and some elites of the War Dimension. They were obstructing the path of those 6 figures. Xianxia saw 2 familiar people in the group. It was Yi Jibei and Xing Biqing. Xianxia frowned upon noticing them. Meanwhile, an expert from Eternal Kingdom was the first to charge forward. But it only took a moment for an afterimage to flash, causing Xing Biqing's expression to change. That expert from the Eternal Kingdom was still charging forward, but his head was gone. His body was charging, but his head was gone. Behind the falling head was a black-clothed figure who was putting away their sickle. A strand of blood was slowly dripping from the sickle. An instant kill. While they were both at the Lord Realm, that expert from Eternal Kingdom had been killed in an instant. Yi Zhibei and the others had extremely solemn expressions on their faces. Even Xianxia's face was rather solemn because that black-clothed figure's strength was really quite shocking. Suddenly, a loud explosion resounded in the sky, and then Lu Yuan and Huang Xian appeared in midair. They seemed to be equally matched if judged by their outward appearance alone. Huang Xian glanced at the 6 sickle-wielding figures and smiled. Lu Yuan, these 6 disciples of ours are pretty good, right? Ha. Huang Xian seemed to have thought of something and gazed at Yang Yi. You're Yang Yi, right? Yang Yi nodded. I am. Huang Xian grinned. I heard you've been to dark space. Yang Yi nodded. I have. Why? Huang Xian smiled. These 6 disciples of mine trained there. Yang Yi understood why they were so strong now. Turned out that they'd trained in that crazy place. Someone who'd never been there would never understand how terrifying that place was. Suddenly, Huang Xian smiled. Yang Yi, I heard you're the most monstrous genius in this world's younger generation. Is that true? Yang Yi shook his head. I dare not say so. Huang Xian grinned. Why be so humble? I'll be direct. Are you interested in fighting one of those 6 disciples of my desolate race? Yang Yi shook his head again. I'm not interested. Huang Xian chuckled. Are you afraid? Yang Yi glanced at the arrogant Huang Xian and replied indifferently. I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to stop myself from killing all of them. The surroundings instantly fell silent. Countless gazed at Yang Yi, including those 6 sickle-wielding black-clothed figures. They had never feared anyone in the same realm of cultivation. Or it should be said that even fighting an ordinary Destiny Realm expert wasn't difficult for them. As for Yang Yi, he was merely in the same realm of cultivation as them. Arrogance. Absolute arrogance. That was Huang Xian's impression of Yang Yi. Lu Yuan glanced at Yang Yi and remained silent. Huang Xian started laughing. Yang Yi. Oh, Yang Yi. You've really surprised me. However, these disciples of my race would still like to seek guidance from you. As soon as he finished speaking, one of them stepped forward, and that black-clothed figure's divine sense locked onto Yang Yi. Yang Yi fell silent for a short moment, and then he gazed at Huang Xian. You don't seem to like me? Huang Xian cracked a smile. A little. Of course, I'm not trying to target you. I just hate the sight of all arrogant people. And so you make me feel a little unhappy. Yang Yi nodded slightly. I see. A moment later, he vanished on the spot. A ray of blood red flashed. Huang Xian's eyes narrowed slightly at the instant Yang Yi vanished, and the black-clothed figure before Yang Yi vanished a moment later. Hiss! The black-clothed figure's sickle seemed to slice through something, causing a sharp and ear-piercing screech to resound. A ray of red and black intersected. 3 breaths of time later, Yang Yi sheathed his sword behind the black-clothed figure. The black-clothed figure behind him suddenly split open into 2, and blood and internal organs sprayed all over the ground. An instant kill. Yang Yi turned around and glanced at Huang Xian. Happy now. An instant kill. Everyone here was stunned. The black-clothed experts could instantly annihilate experts from Eternal Kingdom who were in the same realm of cultivation, but Yang Yi could kill them in an instant too. How terrifying was Yang Yi's strength. Huang Xian's face instantly turned gloomy from being provoked like that. There was still a slight smile on his face, but it was a gloomy smile too. Yang Yi naturally didn't fear him. He glanced at the other 5 sickle-wielding black-clothed figures and said, How about you tell them to join forces against me? Provocation. Undisguised provocation. There was killing intent in Huang Xian's eyes. He was about to speak when he suddenly frowned, and then he gazed at Yang Yi. You killed your way out of dark space. killed his way out. At this moment, Huang Xian was quite shocked because someone had told him how Yang Yi left dark space. The disciples of the desolate race had merely trained there. It was mutually agreed upon between the desolate race and the Dark Lord. But Yang Yi was different. He'd killed his way out of that place. He'd killed until the Dark Lord had been forced to send him away. It could be said that there was a huge difference between him and those 6 disciples of the desolate race. Yang Yi glanced at Huang Xian, and then he walked over to Yi Zhibei and Xing Biqing. You're no match for them, so just leave. He'd stepped forward for the sake of Yi Zhibei and Xing Biqing, of course. He didn't care about the fate of others from Eternal Kingdom, and he wouldn't interfere in it as well. But he had to when it was these two. They exchanged glances, and then Xing Biqing shook her head. If we retreat now, our clans will become the laughingstock of Eternal Kingdom. It would be a humiliation. Anyone from Eternal Kingdom who retreated now would be a humiliation, especially disciples from the large clans like them. Moreover, if they retreated, it would be quite a blow to the other clans. Confidence. Confidence was the most important at a time like this. Yang Yi gazed at them for a long time and was about to speak when Huang Xian suddenly said, "Stop putting on that act in front of me. I don't have the time to listen to your nonsense." As soon as Huang Xian finished speaking, a strand of faint slaughter intent rippled out of Yang Yi, and then he gazed at Huang Xian and started walking in the latter's direction. "You're really not happy, huh?" Huang Xian grinned. "I am." Yang Ye's eyes instantly turned blood red, and then he appeared before Huang Xian and swung his sword. The domain sword. Unlike before, it carried 2 domains this time. Huang Xian's expression changed slightly when he noticed the strength of Yang Ye's attack, and he didn't dare to act carelessly. However, he didn't dodge and he just swung his axe forward. A head-on collision. The world exploded apart beneath this attack. Boom! An explosion resounded, and then the space around them was obliterated. A figure was pushed over 1 kilometer away. It wasn't Yang Yi but Huang Xian. If it was just the sword domain, Yang Yi would be absolutely incapable of fighting a peak Destiny realm expert like Huang Xian. But he had 2 domains. Coupled with his dual intents and executor, he had the strength to fight a peak Destiny realm expert. Yang Yi walked in Huang Xian's direction. The experts of Eternal Kingdom were delighted by the sight of this. If Yang Yi entered into battle with the desolate race, they would naturally feel happy about it. They would have a much better chance at winning with Yang Yi on their side. However, Yang Yi suddenly stopped, glanced at the experts of Eternal Kingdom with a ridiculing smile on his face, and then he flashed over 1 kilometer away. Countless experts from Eternal Kingdom were stunned. He isn't going to help? Xing Biqing sighed softly. She naturally knew about the enmity between Yang Yi and the Eternal Kingdom. So, it was good enough if he didn't act against Eternal Kingdom at a time like this. As for asking him to fight the desolate race, that was no more than a daydream. Lu Yuan sighed softly as well. Not only was Eternal Kingdom unable to entrust any hope on Yang Yi fighting for them against the desolate race, they had to be wary of him. Eternal Kingdom had done just that. If Yang Yi really attacked Eternal Kingdom, there would naturally be someone to deal with him. Huang Xian glanced coldly at Yang Yi. While he was extremely unhappy, he didn't provoke Yang Yi again. He wasn't afraid of Yang Yi. It was just unwise to offend that madman at a time like this. Huang Xian moved his gaze away from Yang Yi, and then he raised his palm and pressed it down. The 5 sickle-wielding black-clothed figures charged at Xing Biqing and the others. They advanced in a row while waving their sickles incessantly, and they formed a long line of afterimages behind them. They were absolutely fast. Meanwhile, the elites of Eternal Kingdom charged at them as well. Suddenly, something unexpected occurred. A few dozen black-clothed figures appeared around the 5 experts from the desolate race, and all of them held daggers in their grasps. Besides that, they emanated no auras, and they moved like phantoms. Assassins. They were the elite assassins of Heaven's Avatar. Yang Yi shook his head. People who trained in dark space would absolutely not fear assassins. No matter how terrifying these assassins were, they couldn't compete with the darkspawn of dark space. Moreover, training in that pitch-black place had made their reaction absolutely terrifying. Sure enough, as soon as the assassins appeared, the 5 sickle-wielding experts swiftly reacted. Hiss! 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 In an instant, a few black-clothed figures lost their heads. Those assassins were like a joke to those 5 experts from the desolate race. However, Xing Biqing and the others had arrived. Almost 30 were besieging just 5 people. However, not only did those 5 avoid death, they were suppressing their opponents. Moreover, people on Xing Biqing's side were dying every moment. Lu Yuan and Huang Xian stood in confrontation. Huang Xian had a smile on his face while Lu Yuan's face was gloomy. On the other side, Yang Yi stood there silently. Xing Biqing and Yi Zhibei almost lost their lives a few times during this time. At this moment, he was quite conflicted. To save them or not to save them. If he didn't save them and allowed this to continue, then Yi Zhibei and Xing Biqing would definitely die unless the Eternal Kingdom had other backup plans. Conversely, if he saved them, they would definitely not agree to leave with him because they had their own choices. He had a huge headache. Meanwhile, the battle was still going on. Based on the situation, Eternal Kingdom was being suppressed. Even though the desolate race didn't have an advantage in numbers, it had an absolute advantage in quality. Suddenly, Yang Ye's expression changed slightly, and then he vanished on the spot. A sickle shot swiftly toward Xing Biqing's throat. She'd lost the initiative in the battle, so she couldn't dodge it or stop it. Even though she was from the war dimension, these fellows were from an even crueler place. Suddenly, Xing Biqing felt her body tremble. And when she opened her eyes next, she saw the sickle was 300 m away from her. Yang Yi was behind her. Huang Xian's eyes narrowed slightly when he saw Yang Yi interfere, and the desire to kill flickered within his eyes. Yang Yi was challenging his limits. Xing Biqing glanced at Yang Yi. You shouldn't have interfered. Yang Yi shook his head. How can I watch you die before me? Xing Biqing wanted to say more, but Yang Yi interrupted her. You've died once for Eternal Kingdom. Now your life is mine. Yang Yi sent her into the primordial pagoda. Xing Biqing couldn't leave without his permission. After he sent her away, Yang Yi flashed over to Yi Zhibei, and he sent her into the primordial pagoda before she could even react. Yang Yi wasn't able to just watch as they died before him. They were the 2 people who'd helped him the most in Eternal Kingdom. It was something he would never forget. Once he saved them, Yang Yi returned to where he'd been, and he ignored everyone here throughout this process. Huang Xing glanced coldly at Yang Yi and didn't say anything. As for Eternal Kingdom, they wouldn't say anything either. The battle was still going on. Eternal Kingdom was showing signs of being defeated. Meanwhile, Yang Yi suddenly looked up into the sky. The battle there was much more intense than the battle down below. Of course, it was more important too. If the outcome of that battle was decided in advance, then the outcome of the entire war would be decided. Due to them being too far away, Yang Yi couldn't see the battle clearly. However, based on the sound of it, it wouldn't be decided that soon. Yang Yi moved his gaze away and looked at Lu Yuan. If Eternal Kingdom had no more trump cards, it was clearly about to be destroyed, because the desolate Death Guard had charged into Eternal Kingdom. So long as they dealt with the remaining war guards, they would be able to bring destruction to Eternal Kingdom. Once that began, Eternal Kingdom would be in huge trouble. Suddenly, something unexpected happened. The spirit energy in the surroundings became scarce. Moreover, some bodies of energy appeared around the desolate Death Guard and the 5 sickle-wielding experts from the desolate race. These types of energy encompassed lightning, fire, water, earth, wind, cloud. All sorts of sprites had appeared. The Sprite Palace. Along with the arrival of these sprites, the desolate Death Guard and the sickle-wielding experts were surrounded by invisible energy formations, and they trapped them. Huang Xian grinned. The Sprite Palace? Interesting. The Sprite Palace. The power which the previous Sprite progenitor created had shown itself. Once the sprites of Sprite Palace arrived, the situation here immediately changed slightly, because they used a type of formation to trap the desolate Death Guard and some other experts of the desolate race. Needless to say, they were quite strong. Unlike the normal sprites living throughout the world, they were organized and trained. They weren't just sprites, they possessed extremely formidable combat strengths as well. Yang Yi had a thought when he saw this scene. It was to make Snowy train the other sprites within the primordial pagoda. He didn't seek to make them possess destructive strength, he just wanted to make them capable of defending themselves. Yang Yi gazed at Huang Xian, and the latter had a wide smile on his face. As soon as he saw that, Yang Yi knew that Eternal Kingdom would probably not have such an easy time. Sure enough, not long after the sprites appeared, the space in the surroundings started trembling slightly. Lu Yuan became visibly vigilant when she noticed this. Suddenly, a strange cry resounded. Along with that strange cry, blurry figures appeared around the sprites. Void spawn. Lu Yuan's face instantly became unsightly. Void spawn were the living beings in the void world. The void world had taken the desolate race's side. Along with their arrival, the situation changed once more. The formations were destroyed, and many sprites were killed in an instant. The combat strengths of these sprites was naturally unable to compare with the experts of the desolate race, or it should be said that the gap between them was quite huge. Suddenly, Snowy appeared on Yang Ye's shoulder. She shot a pleading gaze at Yang Yi upon seeing the sprites of Sprite Palace being killed. Yang Yi rubbed her head gently. Actually, he didn't want to save them because they belonged to the Sprite Palace, so they may not respect Snowy. However, he couldn't bear to refuse her. Yang Yi looked into the distance. At the same time, Huang Xian spoke coldly, Yang Yi, if you interfere in this battle between my desolate race and the Eternal Kingdom, then my desolate race will. Yang Yi suddenly gazed at him. Bite me! Huang Xian's eyes narrowed slightly while his aura became violent. Yang Yi ignored Huang Xian and gazed at the sprites. Those who were willing to follow Snowy come over here. Meanwhile, many of the sprites gazed at Snowy. Sprite progenitor. Many sprites were very hesitant. However, these were some that instinctively came over to Snowy. They were very close to Snowy. Snowy touched some of these sprites with her pawn, and then she gazed at the others in the distance. However, some of them didn't come over. Snowy gazed at Yang Yi with bewilderment in her eyes. Yang Yi rubbed her head gently. They have their own thoughts, choices, and paths. We won't force them, all right? Snowy nodded, and then she led those who were willing to stay with her into the primordial pagoda. The experts of the desolate race started their slaughter again. Hiss! 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 Countless sprites vanished from this world. Yang Yi looked up at the sky. Needless to say, the current leader of the Sprite Palace was quite amazing to actually make these sprites refuse Snowy. However, it was normal because an emperor only remained an emperor throughout his reign. Even though Snowy was the sprite progenitor, it didn't represent that all sprites would respect her. After all, some had cultivated for countless years and had their own consciousness. They weren't very different from humans. Yang Yi glanced at the surroundings. He wasn't interested in watching anymore. He was about to leave. Suddenly, a loud explosion resounded in the sky, and then the entire world shook violently. At this moment, everyone looked up at the battlefield high above. Was the outcome decided? Haha! I'll let all of you try the power of four-dimensional space. The desolate emperor roared wildly with laughter. Once he finished speaking, a wave of terrifying energy appeared in the distant sky. It was energy that shouldn't be possessed by a Destiny Realm expert. The power of four-dimensional space? Yang Yi frowned slightly. Once the energy appeared, two figures slowly fell from the battlefield. It was a peak Destiny Realm independent cultivator and the Master of Heaven's avatar. Both of their bodies fell for around 300 m before exploding apart. They were dead. Only the Soul Sect's Master and the Eternal Lord remained in the sky. Ha! The desolate emperor roared endlessly with laughter. Bang! Bang! Two loud explosions resounded. The sky shook, and then the space in the battlefield above started to collapse inch by inch, destroying three-dimensional space with the power of four-dimensional space. Retreat! The Eternal Lord's voice resounded. Retreat! As soon as he gave that order, it represented that Eternal Kingdom had lost. The experts of Eternal Kingdom didn't hesitate to retreat. The experts of the Desolate race were about to pursue them when a huge barrier of light appeared where the barrier around Eternal Kingdom had once been. The barrier of light was dark violet, and it emanated strands of powerful energy. The Desolate Death Guard and sickle-wielding experts were immediately blasted over 30 kilometers away upon coming into contact with it. Moreover, 2 of the Desolate Death Guard had reacted a little slower, and they were blasted into bits by the energy contained within the barrier. Even Huang Xian was blasted away in an instant. A grand formation, a barrier of light that separated both sides from each other. Suddenly, the Desolate Emperor appeared before the barrier of light. At this moment, his long hair hung loosely to his shoulder, and space flickered around him while a wave of powerful energy suffused the area around him. It was the energy of 4-dimensional space. At this moment, the Desolate Emperor was beyond powerful. It could be said that only 2 people could fight him in a one-on-one battle. The first was Qi Bidian in her partially unsealed state, and the second was Xianxia. As for who could suppress him, it was probably Qi Bidian in her fully unsealed state, the woman in a black dress, and the old man with the bamboo chest. The Desolate Emperor had a wide smile on his face, and he glanced at Yang Yi. "Young brother Yang, you're here to watch?" Yang Yi nodded. "Sort of." The Desolate Emperor chuckled. "Then watch well. This battle will be very interesting." Yang Yi glanced at him. "I'm a little curious. Aren't you afraid of that woman in black?" He was naturally talking about the woman in a black dress who wielded a black sword. The Desolate Emperor shook his head and smiled. "I didn't dare to attack until now because I was afraid of her. I was afraid that she would sense when I used the strength of the 4-dimensional space. But she's injured now, and those 2 seniors of yours are hunting her down. She doesn't have time to pay attention to me." Yang Yi glanced at the Desolate Emperor. He didn't say a word and just moved aside. Just as the Desolate Emperor had said, there was practically no one left in the world who could stop him. Unless the forces of that place which Mr. Jing and the others came from were willing to help Eternal Kingdom. However, they would probably not help unless there was something special in it for them. After all, theoretically speaking, the Desolate Emperor had surpassed ordinary peak Destiny Realm experts. So, they would have to pay a huge price if they were to attack him now. The Desolate Emperor gazed at the dark violet barrier of light, and the experts of Eternal Kingdom were behind it. Everyone was looking at the Desolate Emperor. If the barrier was destroyed, Eternal Kingdom would fall. The Desolate Emperor grinned. He was about to attack when the Eternal Lord spoke abruptly. "Desolate Emperor." The Desolate Emperor gazed at the Eternal Lord and smiled. "You're trying to surrender? Haha. Sorry. My Desolate race doesn't accept it." The Eternal Lord spoke solemnly. "Desolate Emperor, that place is your target. Yet now that place is about to shatter. So, taking over of Eternal Kingdom won't benefit you at all, right?" The Desolate Emperor cracked a smile. "Eternal Kingdom has that divine spirit vein, so it has sufficient spirit energy to support my existence and help me overcome 3-dimensional space and reach 4-dimensional space." Reach 4-dimensional space. That was the Desolate Emperor's true objective. His ambition was huge, very huge. In the barrier of light, the Eternal Lord gazed at the Desolate Emperor for a long time before he said, "You're daydreaming. Ha." The Desolate Emperor shook his head. "Perhaps, but people need some dreams and goals. Otherwise, wouldn't life be completely meaningless? Even if I fail in the end, I wouldn't regret it. At the very least, I tried. Ha." As soon as he finished speaking, he raised his right hand and pressed it down lightly against the barrier of light. Hiss! The entire barrier cracked open. However, the entire eternal border turned quite ethereal. The Desolate Emperor frowned slightly. "You used eternal border to form this defensive formation." The Eternal Lord gazed coldly at the Desolate Emperor. "If you destroy this formation, eternal border will vanish. At that time, you'll regret your actions." "I will." The Desolate Emperor grinned. "I'll destroy it right now." He slapped his palm down. Boom! The barrier of light shook. and then it exploded apart and transformed into countless fragments of energy that dispersed in the surroundings. At the same time, the entire eternal border started to turn quite ethereal. At this moment, countless living beings throughout eternal border suffered miserable deaths. The destruction of a world represented the death of countless living beings. It wasn't natural destruction but caused by man instead. The desolate emperor gazed at the experts of eternal kingdom, and he spoke coldly, "Kill! Kill all who resist. Suddenly he stopped and he looked to the side. At this moment, Xianxia and countless other experts here looked in the same direction. A woman in a white dress was walking over slowly from the right. Xianxia recognized her. It was the woman who called herself One. She looked just like the woman in black, but she wore snowy white and utterly pure clothes. She held a white sword that seemed as if it was forged from snowy. A pure white sword. There were 2 characters engraved into its hilt. Past life. The desolate emperor's expression changed upon seeing her. It wasn't just the desolate emperor, the Destiny Realm experts of Eternal Kingdom reacted similarly. They had naturally not forgotten how terrifying the woman in black had been. Now, a woman who looked exactly like the woman in black was in front of them. The Eternal Lord's eyes had fear and solemnness in them, but it was mostly madness in his eyes. The desolate emperor gazed at her with indifference. She walked slowly to the desolate emperor and said, "She said the evil of this world is led by man. I didn't really agree to that. After all things have a good and bad side. There is no absolute good and bad, and everything should be done as nature intended. However, after so many years, countless worlds have vanished. But most of them didn't vanish naturally. They vanished because of man." She glanced at Eternal Kingdom and fell silent for a short while before she gazed at the desolate emperor. "The lives of an entire world, is that trivial to you?" The desolate emperor grinned. "I didn't expect you to be someone benevolent. You're really different from that woman in a black dress." The woman in a white dress glanced slowly at the surroundings and said, "See? This world will vanish soon because of your actions. As for the countless living beings here, and especially those without any strength, they will vanish along with this world. Countless lives will vanish." The desolate emperor smiled. "Are you judging me?" The woman stopped. "You gave your life to entering 4-dimensional space and advancing above the Destiny Realm. Here, I'll show you the true power of 4-dimensional space." As soon as she finished speaking, she raised her sword lightly. In an instant, the space before the desolate emperor cracked open, and then a door appeared there. A strange glow flickered within the door. 4-dimensional space. Countless people were unable to maintain their calm upon seeing the door. Especially the peak Destiny Realm experts like the Eternal Lord and Soul Sect's Master. They were staring at the door of legend. Their eyes were red with desire. Xianxia was merely curious. He really wasn't interested in 4-dimensional space. However, Snowy suddenly appeared on his shoulder. She gazed excitedly at the door and wanted to pull Xianxia in. Xianxia's face darkened, and he hurriedly stopped her. After all, not just anyone could go through that door. Snowy gazed at Xianxia with bewilderment, and then she just kept pointed at the door. Xianxia's face darkened. "We can't go into that place." Snowy blinked and gazed at him with bewilderment in her eyes. She was asking why. Xianxia replied quite helplessly, "Because I'm afraid of death." Snowy was at a loss for words. The desolate emperor gazed at the door in silence. The woman smiled. "What? You dedicated your life to entering the 4-dimensional space, right? Now, you don't have to kill or use Eternal Kingdom, and you'll still be able to enter 4-dimensional space. So, why are you hesitating?" The desolate emperor fell silent for a long time before he walked slowly toward the door. Suddenly, Huang Xian spoke. "Eldest brother?" The desolate emperor stopped and said, "From this moment onward, Huang Yin will be the patriarch of the desolate race. My decision is final." He turned to look at Huang Xian. Huang Xian's expression was quite unsightly. The desolate emperor just stared at him. A short while passed before Huang Xian spoke solemnly. I will help him well." The desolate emperor nodded slightly and gazed at Huang Buer. the previous patriarch of the desolate race. Huang Buer fell silent for a short while and nodded. The desolate emperor roared with laughter and walked toward the door. It didn't take long for him to enter it. The door didn't close, but no one could see what was happening beyond it, because the space there was very strange, and it surpassed their knowledge. Everyone here stared at the door. Around 15 minutes later, the door shook, and then the desolate emperor walked out from behind it. At this moment, everyone held their breaths. The desolate emperor gazed at the woman in white. Why? As soon as he said that, his body started to crack open. Everyone was shocked by this scene. Meanwhile, Snowy blinked in Xianxia's arms. After that, she sneaked back into the primordial pagoda. She felt it was best not to go in there. Ha ha! The desolate emperor roared with laughter, and his laughter carried a strand of desolation. He looked up at the door and said, "Thousands of years of bitter cultivation, a lifelong pursuit, but in the end, it amounted to nothing. Ha ha! It's my fault. My fault. Ha ha!" Just like that, his body shattered inch by inch, and he vanished before everyone's eyes. He was gone. A great overlord and emperor had vanished from the world just like that. The surroundings fell silent. Meanwhile, Huang Buer glanced at the woman in white and said, "Retreat!" As soon as he gave the order, the desolate race's army left like a receding tide under his command. The experts of Eternal Kingdom heaved sighs of relief. Even though the desolate emperor was dead, the desolate race's overall strength still remained. If they continued to fight, then even if Eternal Kingdom won in the end, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. The desolate race's retreat was the best outcome they could hope for. Along with the desolate race's retreat, Eternal Kingdom's forces left as well. However, before they left, they made another barrier to seal off Eternal Kingdom again. Obviously, they were worried that the desolate race would return and launch another attack. Something worth mentioning was that the woman in white didn't kill the Destiny Realm experts of both sides. This allowed them to heave huge sighs of relief. If she was just like the woman in black, then they would be absolutely incapable of stopping her. Yang Yi was about to leave too. However, she suddenly appeared before him. Yang Ye's eyelids twitched. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't worried. His intuition told him that her strength was probably superior to the woman in black. Yang Yi remained calm on the outside as he asked, "Can I help you?" She nodded slightly, glanced at the surroundings and said, "This world needs to be saved. I need her help. All right?" Yang Yi thought for a moment and nodded, and then he summoned Snowy. Snowy glanced at the woman and stretched out her paw. The woman grinned and took Snowy's paw. "I'm counting on you. You just have to provide the spirit energy. I'll do the repairing." Snowy gazed at Yang Yi, and the latter nodded. A moment later, Snowy opened her mouth, and countless strands of spirit energy appeared within the shattered territory of Eternal Border. The woman in white's sword suddenly shot forward. It pierced through the clouds while strands of mysterious energy rippled out of it. Just like that, Yang Yi watched with astonishment as the almost destroyed Eternal Border was actually repaired bit by bit. It was no longer within the scope of human power, it was divine power. It was easy to destroy but difficult to repair. Meanwhile, the woman suddenly said, "This sword is called Past Life. It represents the inconceivable process of overcoming the shackles from the karma of the past and attaining new life. It possesses indescribably ability, and it just happens to be the exact opposite of your sword." "My sword?" Yang Yi frowned slightly. He withdrew Executor and said, "Wait, this is?" She grinned. "Heaven Executor belongs to another me. Why is it called Heaven Executor?" Yang Yi was very puzzled. "Don't all of you represent the heavens? So you seek to execute yourselves?" She shook her head and smiled. "You've misunderstood." Yang Yi said, "Please do tell." She glanced at Snowy and said, "A very, very long time ago, when the universe was first formed, the three-dimensional space had a consciousness of its own. During that time, right, you can treat it as a time where the Heaven Tao ruled over the three-dimensional space. It didn't allow the people of this world to cultivate, nor did it allow all living beings to grow. It was the only overlord of this world. It nurtured all things, absorbed all things, and enslaved all things. It was like raising livestock. Once the livestock were mature, they would be slaughtered as nutrition for it. Yang Yi was stunned speechless. The woman glanced at Yang Ye's sword. All things grew freely, and many grew stronger and stronger. I was one of them. In the end, what all of you frequently say, defy the heavens, happened. We defied the heavens. During that time, 99% of all living beings perished, and I was one of the few that survived. I killed it with that sword in your hands. So, it's called Heaven Executor. Yang Yi was utterly stunned. It had completely overturned the way he saw destiny. Yang Yi calmed himself and asked, "Then why do you try to kill Arya, Little Qi, and the others?" The woman in white shook her head slightly. As a person grows stronger, so does their ambition. At the same time as they grow stronger, they grow less worried about things. Just like the desolate emperor. Once his strength arrived at a certain level, the lives of all other living beings are worthless like the lives of ants to him. If his strength grew even further, even the living beings in the entire three-dimensional universe would be worthless to him, and he would eliminate them casually without a second thought, just like the Heaven Tao of the past did. The Heaven Tao of the past could casually take the lives of the myriad of living beings just to improve itself. She chuckled at this point and continued, "They say the Heaven Tao is heartless. Actually, the world didn't become much better once the Heaven Tao was gone. Conversely, without the Heaven Tao there to suppress them, humans and many other living beings became even more unbridled. The saddest part was that they even killed each other. You know, since the ancient times, the number of humans that died at the hands of other humans has accumulated to a figure that's countless times greater than all the humans killed by the Heaven Tao." Yang Yi fell silent, speechless. What the woman in white said had completely overturned his knowledge and understanding of destiny. In the beginning, he felt that destiny was the so-called Heaven Tao of the world. But now it seemed like it wasn't the case at all. She was the one who destroyed the Heaven Tao. Of course, he wasn't sure if she was even human. Meanwhile, the woman smiled. If someone entered four-dimensional space now and mastered its strength, that person would act just like the Heaven Tao of the past. That person will use all things to gain more power. At that time, your life would be worthless to such a person. Moreover, that person would be matchlessly powerful to the point of eliminating you with ease. Do you think that's good? Yang Yi hesitated for a moment and said, "There are no absolutes, right?" She smiled. "You're very right." Yang Yi was delighted because this form of destiny was very open-minded. The woman added, "There are no absolutes, I think so too. However, the other forms of me aren't of the same mind." She patted him lightly. "Don't meet the other forms of me, because they will never reason with you." Yang Yi asked, "Are you talking about the woman in black?" "The woman in black?" The woman in white was stunned for a moment and smiled. "If you meet the other two forms of me, you'll realize that she's actually not that bad." Yang Yi wanted to get more answers, but she shook her head. "I told you all of that because I think that it should come to an end soon. As for everything else, don't ask about that. Because you'll find out soon enough." She suddenly gazed at Yang Ye's stomach, and then she waved her hand. A book appeared in her grasp. She flipped through it and smiled. "Very interesting indeed." Yang Yi asked, "Why?" She smiled. "The one who wrote this is interesting. I'm a little curious. I should have heard about all extraordinary people since the ancient times. But this person..." Yang Yi humbly sought knowledge and asked, "Can you tell me about it?" The woman smiled. "There's always a chance to escape the plans of the Heaven Tao. That statement refers to the principles of the world, the laws of the Grand Tao, and me." Yang Yi spoke solemnly. "You're that one that escaped?" She nodded. "Everything in the three-dimensional space is ineffective against me, so of course I am." She flipped through a few more pages and nodded slightly. "The person who wrote this understands some of the truth of all things in the universe. It's truly extraordinary." She passed the book back to Yang Yi and said, "You can learn from this. It's beneficial to you." Yang Yi put it away and glanced at her. I heard from little Chi that the woman in black isn't your strongest form. Is that true? Chi bit in? She grinned. Since the ancient times, she's one of the very formidable existences. The Chi Bidian you've seen now isn't even at 30% of her peak strength. If she wasn't afraid of the other two forms of mine, the woman in black you spoke about wouldn't have been able to be a match for her. Yang Yi hesitated for a moment and asked, Are the other two forms of you very formidable? She nodded slightly. Very formidable. Yang Yi pursued an answer. How formidable? The woman grinned. Besides barely losing to the heaven Tao of all those years ago, the original owner of that sword in your grasp has never lost a battle. Yang Yi unconsciously asked, What about in comparison to that sword cultivator? Yang Yi was naturally referring to the unfettered one, the sword cultivator who was traveling the world in search of defeat. She shook her head and smiled. Do you know why he's strong? Yang Yi shook his head. She smiled. He abandoned everything. He once had loved ones, friends, and ties just like you. However, he abandoned it all. He cut off all ties, and he severed all thoughts but the sword in his heart. He has cultivated the sword to its limits, and he really can destroy all things with a single swing of the sword. He can even break three-dimensional space. She gazed at Yang Yi and continued, Actually, you can do the same too. So long as you give up everything in that pagoda of yours, abandon that little fellow called Snowy, abandon the evil beast area, and abandon everything else, your sword can become extremely pure too. Yang Yi smiled. Can I not accomplish that without abandoning all of them? She smiled. Of course you can. However, his path is easier. Giving up is always easier than putting things on your shoulders. She looked toward the distant river. Do you know why I didn't kill the desolate emperor all those years ago? Yang Yi shook his head. The woman in white smiled. All those years ago, I felt he did it for the desolate race, so I spared him. Unfortunately, that was not true. Selfish desires. At most times, the stronger a person was, the more selfish that person would become. As the years go by, they only care about themselves, and it was the same for the desolate emperor. The true reason why he used the desolate race to attack Eternal Kingdom was just for his own sake. She patted Yang Yi lightly on the shoulder. In the beginning, I didn't really understand why the sprite progenitor and evil beast were staying with you, and I didn't understand why Chi Bidian took care of you quite a bit. After observing you in secret, I realized that you're a pretty good person. Because since the very beginning, the people you care about have always been more important than yourself. She turned around and walked away once she finished speaking. Once she left, the eternal border was completely restored. Moreover, because of Snowy's help, the spirit energy here was much denser than before. However, Eternal Kingdom's spirit energy was much scarcer now. The battle just now had impacted Eternal Kingdom tremendously. Yang Yi held Snowy in his arms as he looked up into the sky. The desolate emperor was gone. Needless to say, he was an overlord of a generation, and an extraordinary expert too. However, just as the woman had said, he was absolutely willful when he possessed such strength. He was willing to just casually wipe out Eternal Border, and the reason may just be because he wanted to do it. Moreover, if he took over Eternal Kingdom, the living beings of the entire universe may just be insignificant as ants to him. The strong did as they pleased. There was no limit to this statement because no one knew how selfishly an expert would act. Even though Yang Yi wasn't a good person, he would never slaughter a world in order to enter four-dimensional space. Of course, if anyone dared to harm his loved ones, then it didn't matter how many he had to kill, he wouldn't show any mercy or hesitation. Yang Yi left with Snowy in his arms. Meanwhile, the woman walked along the eternal river. She was walking very slowly, and her sword was just floating by the river. There were countless corpses beneath the river, and there were countless vengeful spirits here too. However, as her sword passed by, all of them vanished. She continued walking all along the river. It didn't take long for her to suddenly stop. There was an old man in front of her, an old man with a bamboo chest on his back. She grinned, and the old man said, "You really think highly of him?" She replied, "Don't you too?" The old man fell silent for a moment and said, I once thought the Desolate Emperor was the most suitable. Unfortunately, his objective was four-dimensional space and going above the Destiny realm. She smiled. It's very normal. Everyone has their own selfish desires. The old man said, He's human too. She said, He's a loyal person who regards his loved ones as more important than himself. I believe that he'll be good to this world. The old man smiled. He's someone who attained the Destiny realm in slaughter intent. She grinned. It was born from love and emotions. This world cannot be overseen by a purely good person because someone like that cannot manage all things in this universe. Some deserve death. Of course, a purely bad person won't work either. Selfish people will only lead the three-dimensional universe to its death. He kills, but not wantonly. He's loyal, but not pedantic. Most importantly, he had his limits, and he doesn't care about the four-dimensional universe. She gazed at the old man. The three-dimensional universe our generation risked our lives to save can't be allowed to be destroyed in the hands of those that come after us. She gazed at the distant eternal kingdom and continued, I choose him. The old man fell silent for a long time and said, No wonder you gave him some guidance just now. But the other three forms of you, she spoke softly, I hope he doesn't encounter them. The old man spoke solemnly. What if he does? She shook her head slightly. Then I wish him good luck. I'm sure you know that two of me cannot appear at the same time. After all, this dimension cannot endure the presence of two of me simultaneously present here. Her figure gradually turned ethereal. The old man sighed softly and vanished into the distance. Eternal Kingdom. Presently, Eternal Kingdom could be said to be filled with celebration. Eternal Kingdom had won. The Desolate Emperor was dead, and the Eternal Kingdom's biggest threat was gone, the ancient sword sect. After he bade farewell to the woman in white, Xianxia returned to the ancient sword sect. He sat on the peak of the mountain with a book on his lap. Xianxia closed his eyes and sensed the world around him. Countless strands of slaughter intent and sword intent suffused the area around him, and it didn't take long for the entire ancient sword sect to be covered in sword intent and slaughter intent. In the beginning, the disciples of the ancient sword sect felt very uncomfortable because it was too strong. So, the disciples of the sect started to resist his slaughter and sword intent with their own sword intent. However, as time passed, Xianxia's sword and slaughter intent changed. The sword intent wasn't aggressive anymore, and neither was the slaughter intent. Around 2 weeks passed like this. Now, Xianxia's slaughter intent and sword intent were still present, but the disciples of the ancient sword sect couldn't sense them anymore. In the primordial pagoda, Sword Scroll grinned. Congratulations! Xianxia stood up slowly on the mountain peak. A wave of powerful aura swept out from him like the tide, and it instantly caused the space in a huge area around him to ripple violently. Xianxia raised his right hand lightly, and then the space around him returned to normal. Xianxia looked up at the sky and grinned. The Destiny Realm. This time, he'd advanced from the Lord Realm to the Destiny Realm. After speaking to the woman in white, he'd gained some comprehension, and once he returned to the ancient sword sect, he started to use the book and his own dual domains to sense the world and everything in it. In the beginning, he was relying on his domains a little, but in the end, he gave up on using his domains. Unexpectedly, he could transcend three-dimensional space without his domains, and if he used the domains, he could even come into contact with many types of space. These different types of space were between three-dimensional space and four-dimensional space. Or perhaps it should be said that they were a platform for one to enter four-dimensional space. However, he didn't dare to explore further, because they felt extremely dangerous to him, and the slightest mistake may lead to his death. The Destiny Realm. Some said that the Destiny Realm allowed one to sense destiny. However, it actually meant that attaining the Destiny Realm allowed one to sense a little of four-dimensional space. Xianxia looked up at the sky. The woman in white and her other forms refused to allow anyone to enter four-dimensional space. He was quite puzzled by this because even someone as powerful as the Desolate Emperor had perished from entering four-dimensional space. A long time later, Xianxia shook his head. He didn't really want to care about all of that. He just wanted everyone around him to be fine. As for the four-dimensional space, he didn't care about it at all. Yang Yi left the ancient sword sect, and he went to the Yi clan to send Yi Jibei home. The Yi clan grew quite anxious when Yang Yi arrived. After all, his current status was quite special. It was the Yi clan's ancestor, Yi Zhitian, who came to greet Yang Yi. He had a rather complicated expression on his face when he saw Yang Yi. Yang Yi cupped his fist and said, "Jibei won't be in any trouble if she returns, right?" Yi Zhitian shook his head. "Thank you for lending a hand. Don't worry. She won't be in any trouble here." Yang Yi nodded slightly and gazed at Yi Jibei. "Visit the ancient sword sect when you're free." She nodded slightly. She wanted to say something, but she didn't say anything in the end. Yang Yi smiled and was about to leave, but Yi Zhitian suddenly spoke. "Be careful of the people from that place. According to my knowledge, that place is about to collapse. I'm sure you're aware that some of the people there are at the peak of the Destiny realm, and some may have even surpassed the Destiny realm in strength alone. Without that place to suppress their cultivation, they won't be able to hide themselves, and that represents that Destiny may notice their presence. However, the sprite progenitor with you can help them. So, they will definitely target the sprite progenitor." Yang Yi nodded. "Thank you for the warning. Farewell." Yang Yi leaped up on his sword and vanished into the sky. Yi Zhitian sighed softly on the spot. He has it hard too. Once he left the Yi clan, Yang Yi immediately headed for the Xing clan. At the entrance to the Xing clan, Yang Yi was greeted by the current patriarch of the Xing clan, Xing Ren. However, he wasn't very friendly. Yang Yi gazed at Xing Biqing, and she remained silent. Yang Yi gazed at Xing Ren and said, "She'll be fine and well in the Xing clan, right?" Xing Ren replied indifferently, "That's none of your business." As soon as he said that, half of Yang Ye's hair turned blood red, and a wave of monstrous slaughter intent instantly enveloped the Xing clan. At this moment, everyone in the Xing clan was shocked. Xing Ren's expression changed as well. "Yang Yi, what the heck are you doing?" "What am I doing?" Yang Ye's face was rather ferocious. "I'll ask you one last time. Will she be fine and well in the Xing clan?" Xing Ren's face was extremely unsightly. Meanwhile, many in the Xing clan had been corrupted by Yang Ye's slaughter intent, and the entire Xing clan was in chaos. Even though they knew Yang Yi was the culprit, no one dared to attack him. They didn't dare. Presently, no power in Eternal Kingdom dared to act against Yang Yi on its own. Meanwhile, Yang Yi suddenly chuckled. "It's fine. I can wait." Once he finished speaking, his slaughter intent grew thicker. Now, even Xing Ren found it quite difficult to resist. Xing Ren was astounded, and he hurriedly suppressed the slaughter intent while shouting furiously, "Yang Yi, don't go too far." Yang Yi ignored Xing Ren and continued releasing his slaughter intent. Meanwhile, many members of the Xing clan started to kill each other. Suddenly, Xing Bidian tugged Yang Ye's hand and shook her head slightly while speaking softly. "Forget it." Yang Yi shook his head and walked slowly toward the Xing clan, and he spoke ferociously. "Do you know why the Xing clan is still whole? Because you have Xing Biqing. If it wasn't for her, then based on what you did to me, the Xing clan would have vanished from this world a long time ago. Of course, it isn't too late now." As soon as he finished speaking, a blood-red ray of light surged up into the sky. "Executor." Xing Ren was finally quite afraid when he witnessed this. He knew the madman before him was serious. At this moment, he couldn't be bothered to consider his dignity or anything else. His own life and the lives of the Xing clan's disciples were most important. Right when Yang Yi was about to start a slaughter, Xing Ren hurriedly said, "Yang Yi, my Xing clan won't harm her. So, you can rest at ease, all right?" However, Yang Yi still launched the attack. Hiss! Xing Ren watched with astonishment as the estate behind him was cut into two. Dust and dirt surged up into the air. "You?" Xing Ren was so livid he couldn't even speak properly. Yang Yi just ignored him and glanced at the surroundings. "If Xing Biqing is fine and well in your clan, everything will be fine. But if I find out you treat her unfairly, then let me tell you this. I'll definitely return and kill all of you. To be honest, I really really want to slaughter your entire clan. Yang Yi gazed at Xing Biqing and continued, if you can't stay here, come to the ancient sword sect, and come to me if you have any difficulties. Xing Biqing smiled bitterly. You? Yang Yi gazed at Xing Run and said, remember what I said. If she's fine and well, the Xing clan will be safe. If she's gone, I'll immediately make the Xing clan pay for what it did. Yang Yi vanished into the sky once he finished speaking. Xing Ren's face was extremely unsightly. A humiliation. When had the Xing clan ever been treated like that? It was an absolute humiliation to the Xing clan, but what could he do about it? Fight Yang Yi? The Xing clan had suffered terrible losses in the battle against the desolate race, and even that existence from the Xing clan had been severely injured. Presently, the Xing clan couldn't afford to enter into a battle. Of course, even if they could, he wasn't really willing to. The desolate race was a threat no more, so there was another problem now. Could the powers of Eternal Kingdom still stay united as they had been? All the other powers had started to think about their own selfish desires. Yang Yi didn't return to the ancient sword sect and just entered the war dimension instead. As soon as he arrived, Lu Yuan appeared before him. Yang Yi said, I'm not here to cause trouble. She gazed at him for a long time and left. Actually, if Yang Yi insisted on causing trouble here, she couldn't stop him at all. While Yang Yi was at the Lord Realm, his intents were at the Destiny Realm. And he had two of them too. Something worth mentioning was that Yang Yi had concealed his cultivation. Presently, no one knew that he was in the Destiny Realm. With the help of his dual domains, only someone at the level of Chi Bidian or the woman in white would be able to see through his true cultivation. There was an abyss at the extreme north of the war dimension. It was where Chi Bidian had been. Yang Yi arrived at the abyss again, and he met Song Mu and Sha Ji there at the bottom of it. Yang Yi spoke softly, Seniors, do you know where she is? He was naturally most concerned about Chi Bidian and Xianxia. They were the people he was most worried about right now. Song Mu glanced at Yang Yi and said, we can't contact her either. Yang Yi asked, how high are their chances? Song Mu replied solemnly, Master hasn't fully unsealed her strength. Under such circumstances, they don't have a huge chance. Even if that existence is injured. Yang Yi asked, why? Song Mu sighed softly. Because she's very difficult to kill. Perhaps you're unaware, but her four forms possess 4 different types of profound energy. And every one of them possesses a heaven-defying effect. It's the ability to heal. Her healing is countless times better than your primordial violet energy. Unless they are killed with a single attack, it's very difficult to kill them. But if Master unseals herself, it will definitely draw the attention of one of her stronger forms. In short, they aren't in a very good situation. Yang Yi fell silent for a long time and said, I don't know how to locate them. Song Mu shook his head. That isn't necessary. Just do what you should be doing. You can't interfere in their business yet. He glanced at the surroundings and sighed softly. Let's go. Yang Yi gazed at Song Mu with bewilderment. Huh. Song Mu glanced at Yang Yi and said, Master said that if a day comes when she leaves, we should go with you. According to my knowledge, you're in a much more dangerous situation than she is. So, what do you plan to do? What do I plan to do? Yang Yi was stunned for a moment. In the end, he shook his head and smiled. What else can I do? I'll kill my way through it until blood forms rivers. They gazed at Yang Yi in silence. The ancient sword sect. The disciples of the ancient sword sect were cultivating as always. Suddenly, a middle-aged man in a dark violet robe appeared in the air above the sect. At practically the exact same moment, Elder Shui and the others appeared before him. Elder Shui frowned slightly. May I know who you are? The middle-aged man grinned. They call me Mr. Jing. I'd like to ask all of you to come with me. Elder Shui shook her head. I'm afraid we can't. Mr. Jing chuckled, and then he raised his right hand and pressed it down. Hiss! 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 The sect below started to explode apart inch by inch. At the same time, everyone in the sect was pressed flat on the ground. Suddenly, a few figures shot up into the air. It was Blood Maiden, Nether Maiden, and the others. However, two more figures appeared by Mr. Jing's side, Shui Wubian and another one of the old men who'd been at the origin world that day. 3 Peak Destiny Realm experts. Mr. Jing sized up Blood Maiden's group and grinned. You're exactly who I'm looking for. He'll definitely come with all of you in our possession. It's best if you don't resist. Otherwise, I wouldn't mind killing a few of you to make him act less crazily and arrogantly. The two figures behind Mr. Jing charged forward once he finished speaking. Blood Maiden's eyes narrowed slightly, and then she immediately activated the blood domain. However, as soon as it appeared, a wave of powerful and mysterious energy enveloped her blood domain. The water domain. Shui Wubian. In an instant, boundless water strangely appeared within Blood Maiden's blood domain, and the powerful boundless water instantly suppressed her domain completely. Her domain was completely and utterly suppressed. It wasn't that the blood domain was inferior to the water domain, it was just the gap in their cultivations. In an instant, the blood domain started to explode apart inch by inch. Ugh! Run! Blood Maiden's shrill voice came from within the blood domain. Run! Mr. Jing shook his head and tapped his right hand forward. The space around Nether Maiden and the others instantly warped. However, the warped space suddenly started to recover slowly. Ha! Mr. Jing gazed at Nether Maiden and sized her up. He spoke softly. The power to reverse. Interesting. Unfortunately, you're too weak. As soon as he finished speaking, he clenched his right fist and twisted it. Bang! The space around Nether Maiden was obliterated. At the same time, a wave of powerful energy slammed against her. Bam! Nether Maiden was blasted extremely far away. Moreover, her body exploded apart, and her soul couldn't even react before a pitch-black chain pierced through both her shoulder blades. The pitch-black chain was blazing with flames, and it instantly caused Nether Maiden's face to warp. Mr. Jing looked to the side. Nether Lord, she's a friend of Xianxia's. If you treat her like that, then based on his character, your netherworld will definitely suffer annihilation. A middle-aged man covered in dense death energy walked over from afar. The middle-aged man spoke indifferently. Xianxia? Mr. Jing, are you that afraid of him? Mr. Jing smiled. Not really, but he can't be underestimated. Meanwhile, the Nether Lord suddenly spread his arms. In an instant, countless pitch-black chains shot toward the others and even the disciples of the ancient sword sect. Hiss! 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 The bodies of all who were touched by the chains instantly exploded, and their souls were bound and immobilized. Absolute suppression. Meanwhile, the Nether Lord raised his right hand slightly, and the chains on Nether Maiden squeezed down a little. In an instant, Nether Maiden's soul turned slightly ethereal. The Nether Lord grinned. You must be even more ruthless when dealing with the ruthless. Mr. Jing, why don't we just kill all of them? All right? Their souls are very pure, and they'll be extremely useful to my nether world. Mr. Jing shook his head. We still need him and the sprite progenitor. Take them away. The Nether Lord shrugged and vanished on the spot. Nether Maiden and the others vanished with him. However, Elder Shui wasn't taken away. Mr. Jing gazed at Elder Shui and smiled. I've left you behind so that you'll tell Xianxia to bring the sprite progenitor to the end world. If he doesn't arrive in 3 days, I'll send him the heads of all those disciples and women. Mr. Jing turned around and left once he finished speaking. Suddenly, a voice came from the side. Aren't all of you afraid of Qi Bidian and Tianxiu? Mr. Jing shot a glance to the right and grinned. They will probably not show themselves again. Ha ha! He turned around and vanished into the distance. The person there fell silent. Not long after Mr. Jing vanished, an old man appeared. It was the Yi clan's ancestor, Yi Zhitian. He glanced at the sect below, shook his head and sighed. Notify Xianxia. Yes. Someone responded from the shadows and left. Yi Zhitian looked into the sky while a trace of worry could be seen in his eyes. One wave was just over and another had risen. The war dimension. The space in front of Xianxia trembled, and then Xianxia's face warped. A wave of terrifying slaughter intent rippled out of him. A moment later, a ray of blood-red light shot up into the air and vanished into the sky. Song Mu and Sha Ji exchanged glances, and then they hurried after it. The ancient sword sect. When Yang Yi returned to the sect, only Elder Shui remained. She knelt down slowly upon seeing Yang Yi. "We failed you." Yang Yi shook his head. "It was my mistake. I knew they would target me, but I didn't make sufficient preparations." He glanced at the surroundings. "Tell me what happened." Elder Shui hesitated. Yang Yi said, "Tell me." She sighed and told him everything that occurred. Yang Yi was exceptionally calm. Even when he heard that their bodies had been destroyed and souls were bound and pierced, he still remained silent. Elder Shui glanced at Yang Yi once she was done. "Sect Master." Yang Yi glanced at the surroundings and said, "Elder Shui, look for a place to hide. Don't show yourself without my orders." Elder Shui spoke solemnly. "Let me go with you, Sect Master." Yang Yi shook his head. "Let me do it myself." Elder Shui, "They are beyond your strength, so just protect yourself well. Because I may not be able to protect you for now." She walked over to Yang Yi. "Sect Master, I'm worried about them too, but you must remember to never act rashly. Don't ever be rash." She knew that Yang Yi would go to their rescue, but she didn't want him to be rash. Rashness couldn't save them, and it would cost Yang Yi his life too. Yang Yi nodded. "I won't be rash." Yang Yi suddenly looked to the right at this point. "Senior, please show yourself." As soon as he said that, an old man and woman appeared before him. It was Yi Zhitian and Yi Zhibei. Yi Zhitian laughed bitterly. "I'm sorry, I couldn't do anything." Yang Yi nodded. "I understand." Yi Zhitian glanced at Elder Shui and said, "She'll be safe in my Yi clan." Yang Yi cupped his fist. "Thank you." Yi Zhitian shook his head. "You rescued Jibei from the desolate race that day, so we owe you. Moreover, you're a friend of hers. Forming goodwill." Actually, Yi Zhitian's thoughts were very simple, and it was to try his best to form goodwill with Yang Yi. Coupled with Yang Ye's friendship with Yi Zhibei, it wasn't bad for the Yi clan to form goodwill with Yang Yi. After all, Yang Yi had never targeted the Yi clan, and he'd even helped them. Yang Yi glanced at the surroundings and said, "Senior, do you know how to get to the end world?" Yi Zhitian nodded slightly. "I went there with the Eternal Lord once. The strongest of our universe are gathered there, and now even the experts and powers that escaped the origin world may have moved there. They probably want you to bring the sprite progenitor there for two reasons. Firstly, to repair that world. Secondly, if you refuse to repair it, they may try to take the sprite progenitor and use her to conceal themselves from the heavens so that they can conceal themselves from destiny." He gazed at Yang Yi and continued, "If you go now, the only outcome is being at their mercy, because you're not strong enough to fight them." Yang Yi nodded. "I know, so I won't be rash." Yi Zhitian glanced at Yang Yi and sighed softly. "Anything is possible while you're still alive. Take care." Yi Zhibei walked over to Yang Yi and said, "No matter what, be careful. Come to the Yi clan if you're driven to a corner." Yi Zhitian glanced at Yi Zhibei and remained silent. Yang Yi nodded. "All right, you take care too." Yi Zhibei didn't say anything. She turned around and vanished with Yi Zhitian and Elder Shui. Once they left, Sha Ji and Song Mu appeared behind Yang Yi. Song Mu hesitated to speak. Yang Yi spoke softly. "So." Song Mu shook his head. "Master asked us to follow you. But my personal suggestion is to not be rash. Even if the three of us go there, we won't be able to do anything there." Sha Ji nodded. "We know a little about the end world. It's where people who have nowhere to go reside. Our strength isn't enough. Of course, we will go with you if you insist." Yang Yi glanced at them and spoke softly. "Thank you." They nodded, and then they gazed at Yang Yi and waited for him to make a decision. Yang Yi glanced at the surroundings and spoke softly. "I'll definitely make them suffer." Yang Yi vanished into the distance, and the two old men followed him. Yang Yi didn't go to the end world, he went to the void world instead. The void world. As soon as he arrived there, the Void Lord appeared before him. But once he saw Yang Yi and the two old men behind Yang Yi, the Void Lord fell silent for a moment and said, "Watch what you do." He turned around and left. Yang Yi led the two old men into the void space, and he saw a woman in there. Sky Maiden. She was seated cross-legged there and was ceaselessly devouring the planets in the surroundings. At this moment, her aura was deep like outer space. It was unfathomable. Song Mu and Sha Ji exchanged glances, and they both saw solemnness in each other's eyes. Yang Yi walked over to her and said, "Eldest sister, I've been bullied." A moment of silence ensued, and then Sky Maiden opened her eyes.